Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that, tries to get past the headlines.
Right, dig a bit deeper.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into something fundamental. It's about that clash, that real tension point.
Yeah.
What happens when formal rules, ethical rules, slam right into political reality?
It's a fascinating question, isn't it? Because you've got these standards, these ideals written down, highest ethical conduct and all that. But then you have the hard math of politics. Maintaining power, getting legislation passed, especially when majorities are razor thin.
And that tension isn't just theory. It's playing out right now, or has been, very dramatically in Minnesota. We're talking about the case of State Senator Nicole Mitchell. Her conviction, her resignation, it's got everything.
It really does.
So our mission today is to unpack this for you. We'll look at the Minnesota Senate's actual ethics rules, sure, but also how party politics, that DFL versus Republican dynamic, really influenced how those rules were applied, or maybe not applied.
And the fallout, too. The impact on the state's political balance. It's like a case study in how accountability systems function or sometimes struggle under intense political pressure.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The incident itself. We need to go back to April 22nd, 2024, very early morning, like 4:45 a.m. in Detroit Lakes.
Yeah.
A sitting state senator, Nicole Mitchell, is arrested. She's found inside her stepmother, Carol Mitchell's home.
Now, Mitchell's explanation, initially at least, was that she was there for sentimental reasons, retrieving items specifically mentioning her late father's ashes.
Right, Rod Mitchell's ashes. And also, she said, checking on her stepmother, who apparently has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
A welfare check, essentially.
But the police report and then the prosecution's case told a different story. She was charged with first-degree burglary, a felony, and possessing burglary tools.
And that's the key part, the tools. They found a crowbar.
Exactly. The prosecution jumped on that. As a crowbar standard kit for getting dad's ashes or checking on someone's welfare, that became a central point of contention.
Mitchell, later in her testimony, she stuck to her story. Denied any intent to steal, insisted it was about concern for her stepmother.
So you had these two completely opposing narratives presented to the jury over 4 days.
And the jury didn't take long to decide, did they?
No, remarkably quick for a felony trial. July 18th, 2025, just about 3 hours of deliberation.
And the verdict?
Guilty. On both counts, burglary and possession of burglary tools.
Wow. Okay, so a sitting senator convicted of a felony. This immediately brings up the Senate's own rules, doesn't it? How are they supposed to handle something like this?
Well, like most legislative bodies, the Minnesota Senate has formal rules. They talk about upholding the highest standard of ethical conduct. It's broad, but it's there.
And they define improper conduct, right? What does that cover?
It's pretty wide-ranging, violating rules, obviously, but also betraying public trust or doing anything that brings the Senate itself into dishonor. That last one is quite subjective, you could argue.
And they have a specific committee for this.
Yes, the Subcommittee on Ethical Conduct. It's bipartisan, by design, 4 members, 2 from each party, DFL and Republican.
Okay, balanced. What does it do?
It has 2 main roles. Advisory, offering guidance on ethics, and investigatory, looking into complaints. And it has teeth. It can issue subpoenas, compel testimony.
Now, there's something about privacy with their investigations, right?
That's a crucial detail. The initial inquiry, when they're just determining if there's probable cause to proceed, that part can be kept private.
To protect reputations, presumably, if the complaint is baseless.
Exactly. But, and this is key, once they find probable cause, everything after that point becomes public. All further proceedings, hearings, reports.
I see. And there's another rule that became really important here about criminal cases.
Yes. The rules explicitly allow the subcommittee to defer, to basically pause its own investigation if there's an ongoing criminal case involving the same matter.
Which is exactly what happened with Senator Mitchell.
Precisely. After her arrest in April 2024, an ethics inquiry was initiated. But the committee voted to defer, citing the pending criminal charges. They decided to wait for the courts.
And that decision to wait, combined with the political situation, that's where things got really intense.
Extremely. Because while the Ethics Committee was paused, Senate Republicans weren't waiting. They pushed repeatedly for Mitchell's expulsion from the Senate floor,
arguing that the charges themselves were serious enough, felony charges, to warrant removal. That had brought the Senate into dishonor right then and there.
Right. They didn't feel the need to wait for a conviction. But those expulsion motions failed.
And how did they fail? This is the part that sounds almost unbelievable.
It really highlights the raw power of numbers. The motions failed because Senator Mitchell herself tasked the deciding vote.
She voted against her own expulsion.
She did. The Senate was split 34 DFL to 33 Republicans. Her vote created a tie on the expulsion motion, and a tie vote means the motion fails.
So the person accused of felony burglary, facing expulsion, literally casts the vote that keeps her in office.
For over a year after her arrest, yes. It's a stark example of how a narrow majority can directly block disciplinary action, even in, well, pretty extraordinary circumstances.
While the formal expulsion failed, her own party caucus, the DFL, they did take some action, didn't they?
They did, yes. After the arrest, the DFL caucus removed her from all her committee assignments, and they barred her from attending their private caucus meetings.
So she was kind of isolated within her own party, but crucially, she kept her seat and her vote on the Senate floor.
Exactly. Sidelined internally, but still a voting member of the Senate. And in a 34-33 Senate, that single vote was incredibly valuable to the DFL majority.
That one-seat majority really is the elephant in the room throughout this whole saga.
Okay.
It explains so much of the DFL strategy, or at least what critics perceived as their strategy.
Absolutely. Every piece of legislation, every vote, depended on maintaining that 34-33 advantage. Losing Mitchell's seat, either through expulsion or resignation before a replacement could be elected, would have meant deadlock.
So fast forward again to July 2025. The conviction happens. Guilty on both counts. The pressure must have been immense then.
Overwhelming. The calls for her resignation came immediately from Republicans, from editorial boards, even some initial calls from within the DFL party structure, though not leadership initially.
And she did announce her resignation, but not immediately effective.
Right. On July 21st, 3 days after the conviction, she announced she would resign, but set the date for August 4th, so about a 2-week delay.
What reasons did she give for that delay?
She listed several things: needing time to wrap up legislative projects, handle constituent casework, ensure a smooth transition for her staff, and importantly, arrange health insurance for her son.
Okay, those sound like practical considerations, perhaps? But how did the Republicans react to that delay?
They were furious. Senate Republican leader Mark Johnson immediately blasted it. His quote was pretty direct: "A convicted felon doesn't get 2 weeks' notice."
Strong words.
Very. He explicitly accused the Democrats of, in his words, shielding Mitchell for 15 months to protect their political power. He framed it as prioritizing power over principle, putting politics ahead of the people of Minnesota.
It really crystallized that core conflict. Immediate accountability versus, let's say, the political utility of keeping that seat filled, even for just 2 more weeks.
Precisely. And the DFL response from Majority Leader Aaron Murphy was more procedural, acknowledging Mitchell had received due process and stating the caucus would now focus on other matters, kind of moving on.
So it starkly lays out that tension we started with. The demand for immediate consequences clashing with the strategic needs of maintaining a majority.
It's a classic political dilemma, amplified by the closeness of the numbers in the Minnesota Senate. You see versions of this play out elsewhere, but rarely with such a dramatic vote like the one on her own expulsion.
So what happens now? Mitchell resigns effective August 4th. What does that do to the Senate?
It creates a temporary tie. The Minnesota Senate will be split exactly 33-33 between the DFL and the Republicans.
A perfect deadlock.
For the time being, yes. Until the vacancy is filled.
And how are vacancies filled in Minnesota?
Typically, the governor calls a special election for the specific district. Governor Tim Walz is expected to do that for Mitchell's District 47 seat.
And the timing. They'd want someone in place before the next legislative session, presumably.
That would be the goal, yes. The legislature is scheduled to reconvene in February 2026, so the aim will almost certainly be to hold the special election and have a new senator seated by then.
Okay, so all eyes on District 47. What are the stakes for that special election?
Immense. The outcome will literally determine control of the Minnesota Senate.
Is it considered a safe seat for either party?
It leans DFL. Mitchell won it pretty comfortably in 2022, but special elections can be unpredictable. Turnout is different, the circumstances are unique, exactly. The context of why the seat is vacant could energize voters on both sides. Republicans will likely campaign hard on the ethics issue, while the DFL will want to hold on to a district they've won before. Control of the entire chamber hangs in the balance.
So looking back at this whole situation, what have we really learned?
Well, this deep dive, I think, really illuminates how formal rules and political power interact. You have written ethical standards, yes, but their application, the timing of their application, can be heavily influenced by the political landscape.
Especially when control's on a knife's edge.
Absolutely. The Mitchell case shows how maintaining a majority can become a primary driver, potentially delaying or shaping accountability processes. The rules allow for deferral, they allow for votes, and those mechanisms were used, arguably, to maintain political power for as long as possible.
It makes you think, doesn't it? We have these ethics rules, these processes, designed to ensure integrity. But this case reminds us that their true impact often depends less on the letter of the rule and more on the political context, the numbers game.
Right. It's played out on that fluid, high-stakes chessboard of political power.
So, maybe the final thought for you, the listener, is this. What does this Minnesota saga tell us about the true nature of accountability when government is so closely divided? How much does the raw calculus of power shape how ethical standards are actually enforced, especially when every single vote counts?
It's a question that goes way beyond Minnesota, that's for sure. It touches the heart of how representative democracy functions, or sometimes falters under pressure.